Hey guys, it's me, Jeremy, for another history video. So, what I want to do is I want to I want to dedicate this video to Mr. Chesterton's 6th grade class. So Mr. Chesterton and I, we go back a long way. He's been my teacher in 8th grade, and he was like, he's amazing, Mr. Chesterton. If you're watching this, I love you, man. You my boy right there. And I have a lot to be thankful for him because he really taught me a lot about history. So I agreed to do a video for his 6th grade class because, why not? Because I like to contribute to, I like to help others, especially with history, since I know history has sort of a reputation of being very difficult. But after you study it, and if you really think about it, it's not that complicated. It's very easy to understand as long as you're willing to accept sort of facts and just you're willing to memorize a lot. But I mean, that itself isn't that hard. So anyway, if you're a 6th grader watching this video is dedicated to you because I remember when I was in 6th grade and it was a weird time, but it was a fun time, and you guys are so lucky to be learning about this stuff because this is what I dream about. I love studying Greece, and I hope, Mr. Chesterton, I hope you're listening. I hope you're watching because I wanted to do a Rome video, and Rome is awesome. So I'm gonna do a video on Greece, and I just hope you guys enjoy it. So here we go. So you guys in 6th grade are learning how to write essays, and on Friday I observed one of your classes to see how everything would work. And my biggest question is, was Greece that great? Was it that great? I mean, why are we studying it? Is it really that worthy of praise? I mean, should we really be thanking the Greeks a lot for stuff? So my answer is yes. And this entire presentation is going to be simply about why Greece is awesome. Alright, so first let's start with the very simple thing. Democracy, alright? So you guys probably know what democracy means. Demos kratos. Rule by the people, and that means democracy. And so it's right here. Oh, by the way, I have all these names here and places, or not places, but just names of things that you might need to know for your test, since I know your test is Wednesday, so start practicing. So democracy. So basically, the people vote. Greece had something called direct democracy, which means basically all citizens would vote on almost every single issue that need to be addressed. So it wasn't like Bob came on my farm without my permission. Can we make a law about that? It's more like, how much tax should we pay, or should we? What age should people start training at the military, or how much education should we give to the poor people, or should we give education at all? Should we give any rights to women? Nah, we don't need to do that. That's what they thought. What most people don't know is that Athens wasn't always a democracy. So Athens actually started off as an aristocracy, which I have right here, aristocracy, which basically means the wealthy rule. It's similar to an oligarchy, which is also like very few wealthy people rule. So Athens was ruled by an aristocracy. So eventually things got out of hand, and a tyrant named Draco came to power. And Draco, if something is known as draconian, it's usually in a negative tone, meaning it's very harsh and cruel. Draco was like, okay guys, we gotta settle all of our issues. There's gonna be one punishment for every single crime. That is death. So basically, if you do a minor crime like steal, you die. You do something that, wasn't very nice, you die. Basically, life sucked. Life sucked. So eventually, we got Solon, and Solon is known as the lawmaker. Solon was very famous for giving rights to people who weren't necessarily wealthy. So when we had all the power in the aristocracy, but now all the power is going to the people. So I mean, if you really imagine it, it's like, this is good. I mean, it's like Mr. Chesterton, like me basically telling Mr. Chesterton, hey, you have to give these kids less homework. I mean, if I tell you that, you guys are obviously going to like me. And that's what Solon did. Solon was a very good leader. He is right here. Then we had Pisistratus, and Pisistratus was, he's the first tyrant. Sorry, Draco isn't a tyrant. Don't think that's correct. Sorry for my error. I will repent for that. He issued a few things. So first of all, Mr. Cheston loves talking about this. He calls it rule by the force, which basically means is as long as people fear you, they won't rebel against you, or they'll become submissive. They basically, if you threaten to beat everyone up, no one's gonna want to fight you, or because they're gonna be too scared, unless there's some kid who's really into fighting, which you guys shouldn't be. You guys are good kids, I know that. And so he created new festivals, he created new temples. He actually was one of the first people to establish a common currency. So before, people were bartering. Bartering basically means we're trading. I'll give you one shoe if you give me one toy, basically. Instead, he said, alright. This shoe is worth 5 coins. Your toy is worth 10 coins. So if we want to trade, it's not necessarily going to be fair. So we need to set. There sort of needs to be sort of a fair trading point. In other words, if I'm babbling, in other words, there was basically the quarter was invented, or the dollar was invented. There was a currency. There was something that actually had value instead of the actual object. Which sounds weird, but Mr. Cheston can tell you all about that. Anyway, so if then we get to Cleisthenes, and Cleisthenes is the most important guy of basically all this. He is the founder of democracy, and I believe it's in actually I don't know the date off the top of my head. I should know that though. I don't want to bore you guys with dates anyway. So basically, he said all free citizens can participate in government. Which, I mean, at first sounds good, you know? I mean, everyone gets to participate, you get to participate, and you get to participate. It wasn't necessarily like that. Women weren't allowed, people who were not old enough weren't allowed. If you weren't born in Athens, you weren't allowed. If you, if you didn't own land, you weren't allowed. So, basically, only a very small amount of people were actually allowed to, do any of this stuff. But still, this is basically giving power from the aristocracy, the wealthy, to those who were not as wealthy. And this was a very radical idea. This is the birth of democracy. So, in other words, if the question is, why do people say that Greece influenced the rest of the world? Well, it's because democracy was founded here. Democracy, if we think about it, United States is a sort of democracy. Most other countries believe in some form of democracy. I mean, very few countries have actual monarchs as rulers. The Queen of England doesn't count because she doesn't really have any actual power in the British government. Well, very little. But anyway, so basically, Greece gave the world democracy. We see it everywhere today. So that's something you guys should take into account. Another famous Greek ruler was Pericles. I shouldn't say Greek because Greece wasn't united. If you went to ancient Greece and said, "Are you Greek?" They'd go, "What the heck is a Greek? What are you talking about?" The idea of the central Greek it didn't exist. People said, I'm Spartan, or I'm Athenian, or I'm Corinthian, or I'm Theban, or I am just any other city-state. Greece was divided into city-states. So basically, if you think about it, it's like, instead of there being a United States, you'd say, I am Washingtonian, D.C. I don't know how. I'm Houstonian. I am an Austinian. I am a New Yorker. So you wouldn't say I'm an American. You would say I'm from this city-state. I am from this city. So that's how things were divided. But anyway, going back to Pericles. Pericles wanted to make Athens beautiful. So he actually took money, not necessarily legally, but we'll get to that later. he took money and he wanted to make Athens beautiful. In fact, he even built the Parthenon, and that's obviously a big deal. I mean, we love the Parthenon, and the Parthenon was actually a temple to Athena, but you don't need to know that necessarily. Basically, Pericles wanted to make Athens beautiful, and he emphasized on architecture. And architecture we even see today. I mean, after all, many like the White House was based off of based off of Greek columns. Anytime you see a column and like and something on top, like a roof or just a tablet, that's Greek architecture basically. The Greeks believed in having something here, and something on top to keep everything from keep everything stable. So that's what the Greeks believed. Eventually, Athens falls to the Macedonians. You don't need to know them because you haven't talked about Alexander the Great, who, by the way, is very great. He's very great. I love the guy. He's my boy right there. Anyway, so now, okay, we just talked about Athens. So basically, I just talked about how democracy was important, how architecture was important, and that's really that. Next, let's talk about Sparta. Sparta. First of all, 300 is a very good movie. You guys shouldn't watch it because it's not necessarily appropriate. But if you're gonna break some rules, the first rule you should break is not watch 300. You should definitely watch 300 if you were to break rules. If your parents allowed it. If your parents allowed you to watch the best scenes, like the stabbing. It's just so beautiful. I don't know. I love that movie. It's just so good. It's actually based on a true story, but you don't need to know that because you haven't studied the Persian Wars. If you want to know about the Persian Wars, by the way, you can actually watch my video on the Persian Wars. I go into great detail about that. And have fun with that. Because I don't want... Mr. Chesterton didn't want me to spend time on that. But if you want to learn more, because you're like a nerd like me, you can watch my other YouTube video about that. Anyway, back to this. So Sparta. Sparta, one of the most famous people in Sparta is a guy named Lycurgus. And Lycurgus created a system called the Agoge. 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 You don't need to know that, but that is basically the system of training boys into men to serve the military, to serve Sparta. So basically, boys would be trained to learn the ways of the military and be willing to die for Sparta. So that's intense there. Oh man, that's so good. Anyway, okay. Step one. Okay, a baby's born. All right, great. Elders come. If they think that the boy is weak or just is a bit not defective, but if it's not as manly as it should be, they just leave it to die, or they just throw it off a cliff. So that's, if you made it that far, that's great. Next, boys were taken away at the age of 7 from their parents. The reason why they did this is that way they wouldn't have to form any attachment to their parents, but they would have to form an attachment to Sparta. So basically, you wouldn't care about your parents, you care more about Sparta. And that was really important to the Spartans. They wanted you not to have any emotional attachments. They want you to have one attachment, and that was to Sparta, and to your military, and to the military, basically. So you didn't have parents. You barely knew your parents. Boys were trained to run, jump, swim, throw javelins, wrestle, steal. And basically, this is kind of funny. You could steal. You were allowed to steal. Actually, I'll explain this later. But I went to a party where it was basically about Spartans, and I stole stuff because technically you were supposed to steal stuff. So you were allowed to steal. Stealing wasn't a crime. Getting caught stealing was the issue. So you would be punished. You'd be whipped. Boys were even whipped just to see how much they could take it, just to see how tough they were. So obviously things were very harsh for the Spartan boys, but I mean they didn't really believe in exercising of the mind. They believed in the exercise of the body. They wanted to make sure you were the best warrior you could possibly be, and if you weren't, they made sure that you would die. So only the best could serve Sparta. Then you would serve Sparta until the age of 60. If you haven't died, then you could leave the army and become an elder. Anyway, women. Okay, now as much as people think, oh, Athens is so great, Sparta, when it comes to women, Sparta was way better. Way better. Women had more rights. They could, they were, first of all, women exercised for two reasons. Two reasons. And also, why is there noise there? I don't know. That's my little brother. Whatever. Okay, two reasons. One, they thought that if women exercised and became fit, that their babies, especially their boys, would be stronger, naturally stronger. Obviously, that doesn't make sense, but the Spartans believed that, so women trained. And also for a second reason, if the men were off to fight and they left Sparta undefended, and some crazy guy would want to invade Sparta, the women would be there to fight back. They would be willing to take them down and do whatever. So they were equally trained. So women were actually pretty cool back then. Of course, you'd never want to meet one, or else they'd kill you. But anyway, that was that. And finally, we have something called it's somewhere here. Oh, right here. Helots. Helots are slaves. Slaves that basically prisoners of war. And they were actually the majority of Spartans. Like, the majority of the city were Helots. Because this part of Spartan training was to kill Helots at a regular basis, they were pretty scared to revolt. I mean, it's basically like you're walking around with your buddy Bob and you're talking about life, and all of a sudden a Spartan guy just, kills him. Like, whoa. If that's the case, you don't want to be next, so you're not gonna fight. You're just gonna go, okay, I'm out. You do whatever. Bye, Bobby. Have fun. But anyway, so that's what happened. So they were so scared that they couldn't revolt. But they wanted to so badly because the Spartans treated them horribly. They were so mean to them. They would kill them. They would do mean things to them. It was just horrible. But they made up. They did all the hard labor. They did all the manly stuff that the Spartans were too busy. That the Spartans couldn't do because they were too busy fighting. So the Helots played a very vital role. However, they were slaves, so they didn't have any rights at all, none at all. They were basically moving targets, if you would. Okay, that's Sparta. Now let's talk about Athens. So unlike Sparta, the Athenians believed in two exercising two things: exercising the body, the physical, and exercising the mind, the mental. So not only would people be part of the military, they would be learning. They, especially rich boys. Rich boys got private tutoring. They learned philosophy, geometry, government. They learned so much. As compared to the Spartans, who did not really care about education. They were only taught how to brutally kill your enemy. Poor people didn't get education in Athens because they were farmers and they didn't to be a farmer. You don't have to learn that much. Step 1, put seed in ground. Step 2, cover seed. Third step, pray. Okay, that's it. That's all you need to know basically, and add water and sunlight and whatever. But you didn't even know that much, and also if you didn't know that much, you didn't you didn't have a lot of money. You didn't get to know that much. Tutors were expensive. But many successful people got tutors. Actually, in fact, Alexander the Great was tutored by our buddy Aristotle, who I will discuss at the very end. I'm not sure if you can see that. Aristotle, my boy right here. I'm not that big of a fan of him, but that's me. But anyway, so the Spartans and Athenians were very different. Girls were the complete opposite of what Spartans had. Girls in Athens had no rights. They couldn't leave home without permission. They couldn't take part in government. They couldn't own their own property. They had no education. If you were a woman, you wouldn't want to be in Athens. It was the worst place. You were basically just super dumb. And that sucks because women have a lot of potential. They could even be smarter than men. And in a lot of cases, in a lot of cases, that's true. And so go women. Yeah, go women. So Athenian women didn't have a lot of opportunities. So in a way, Sparta was a bit better in that sense because Spartan women actually were trained. They had more rights. Okay, so then we have something called the Delian League. And the Delian League is, so basically after the Persian Wars, which you don't need to know, all the Greek city-states wanted to form a league to kind of basically, you have a group of boys, and every year they put in a penny in a jar, so in case of an emergency, you have all those pennies to spend. So basically, in case of another invasion, they would have all that money to keep, to use in case of an emergency. Now Athens. Now I'm going back to what Pericles did. He stole money. Yes, he stole money from the Delian League. He stole money and basically made Athens beautiful. And eventually, Athens got so powerful that they kind of took over the league and began to form their own empire. So when they ask a lot of people, okay, who's better, the Athenians and Spartans, or the Spartans? Sorry, not and. Athenians or Spartans? Most people say, oh, the Athenians, right? And in my opinion, I don't think so. I prefer the Spartans because the Spartans they want to stand up against the Athenians because the Athenians are getting too powerful. It's not, they are actually, those who won't pay them, they end up going and attacking. And that's not cool, bro. Not cool. So anyway, all this erupts into a Peloponnesian War. The Peloponnesian War was basically Athens versus Sparta. Mr. Cheston says, oh, okay, who do you think would win? The Spartans? Okay, game over. It's not like that necessarily, Mr. Cheston. I'm sorry to say this, but Athens did put up a good fight. Athens was actually a naval power. That's another thing you can add to your essay, by the way, which I'm giving authority to. Athens was a naval power. They liked sea battles. They liked using ships as weapons, and the Spartans were a land power. So that's something else. So that's a difference that you can put there if you want. But anyway, Athens thought it would be a very good idea to go to Sicily and conquer it, but that failed miserably, and the Spartans basically destroyed Athens and crushed them. Also, Athens was a plague grew in Athens, and like 1/3 of the population died in Athens, including our very own Pericles. Pericles died, and that wasn't good because as much as I don't like him taking money out of the Delian League, he was actually a pretty good ruler. I'll give him that. You good, Pericles. You my boy. I say that too many times, but whatever. Anyway, both Athens and Sparta were weakened. It's kind of like, it's like you go into this big heavy fight. You fight, you get hit a couple times, you get back in there, you start pounding, and finally you knock your enemy down, KO, game over, but you're so tired after beating them up that you just you also fall. You're so exhausted even though you technically won. That was the case. Sparta beat Athens, but they were so weakened because Athens put up a good fight that they were both kind of weakened. They were both done. And the Macedonians, led by Alexander the Great's father, came and took him over. And took over Greece. So, actually, okay, I'm running out of time, but I want to tell this one good story because I just want to tell you how good the Spartans are. The Macedonians send a letter to Sparta. They've conquered all of Greece, and they say, and the king, Philip II, says, okay, I have a huge army. Now, you will surrender. You will surrender, because if I come into your land and I come in, I will kill everyone, take all the women, take all the children, take all the cattle, burn the city to the ground. And the Spartans reply with one word, if. So basically it's like, if you come in, because we're gonna put up a good fight. So the king was like, okay, fine, you know what, that's just so much glory in one word. I'm gonna leave him alone. guys, leave Sparta alone. All right, they tough. All right, they good. We'll conquer the rest of Greece. Just leave the Spartans alone. So the end of Sparta didn't get conquered. But anyway, because that's just how cool the Spartans are. But anyway, you don't need to know that. I just had a nerd moment. Whatever. Anyway, Greek mythology. So, if you guys ever have any questions between now and the test, please ask me. I started my journey as a mythologist. I studied Greek mythology. I competed in tournaments. So I kind of know what I'm talking about. So you have any doubts about Greek mythology, just ask me, because I would be more than happy just to stop what I'm doing just to answer your question. And I just love it. Anyway, the Greeks were polytheistic. That means they believed in more than one god. Poly, many, theistic, God. Many gods worshipped. So anyway, before we see all the famous gods, there were a group of people called a group of deities called the Titans, and the Titans basically they were kind of mean, especially Kronos. Kronos ate his own children. The only child he didn't eat was Zeus, because Zeus escaped, and Zeus came back, and basically he made his own father throw up his own kids, and those kids followed Zeus to overthrow the Titans, and so then we get a lot of famous gods. Zeus, god of ruler of the sky, ruler of the heavens. Hades, god of the underworld. Poseidon, god of the sea and horses, oddly enough. Hera, goddess of marriage and wife to Zeus. Athena, goddess of wisdom and strategy. She's like, if you're ever playing chess, she would be the one controlling everything. Aphrodite, the goddess of beauty. That's actually, there's that line in that song, "Make me an Aphrodite." That's a reference to Aphrodite, make me beautiful. Ares, god of war. Not Kratos. If you're playing God of War, just too bloody, all right? Tone it down a little bit. But anyway, Ares is the god of war, and he also is the lover of Aphrodite. Apollo is the god of the sun, music, poetry, medicine, basically anything else that there isn't a god for. Dionysus is the god of wine and revelry and just, being totally wasted at a party. Just, it's like he's that one guy who's like, hey, like that. Like he's just you're so drunk. Anyway. And Hermes is the messenger god. He basically goes he's like the Flash. If you guys have to know about DC superhero Flash. You guys have to know about that, right? He's basically that. He travels zip, zap, zap. Like in 1 second, it's crazy. Anyway, the people believe that the gods controlled everything. They believe that the gods controlled all aspects of life. Like if there was a good harvest, then that means that Demeter, who was the goddess of the harvest, obviously, that means she liked you. If you want to sail across the sea, you would have to appease Poseidon by giving him a sacrifice. A sacrifice was basically, here's some nice pork ribs that we made for you. You like it? You like it? Please like it. And the god would go, okay, yeah, that's good. I like it. You have my permission to go. All right, so it's kind of like that. So that was the way it kind of worked. And also, you had access to see the future a little bit. If you wanted to know your future, you'd go to somewhere called Delphi, which I wrote here. Delphi. Also here's Zeus and Kronos, but we'll get to that. Delphi was basically a famous woman would go. She would tell you your future, and she would usually tell it in a riddle. And usually people you'll learn more about this in 9th grade when you read Oedipus Rex, which I won't go into detail because that's a very sad and gory story. But anyway, that's what they believe. There's certain heroes you need to know. Theseus defeated the Minotaur, which is a half bull, half man thing, and very scary. Jason, which my last name is Jason, so I mean I like this dude. He stole the golden fleece, basically a golden ram. Who doesn't want a golden ram? I want a golden ram because golden rams always mean golden poop, and that's always good stuff. Heracles, or as we all know him, Hercules. Hercules is actually the Roman name, but I'm going to call him Heracles. Heracles famously does his 12 tasks, which is like the I'm not sure if I can name them all. Nemean lion, Lernaean hydra, the hind, the boar, the Augean stables, the Stymphalian birds, the Cretan bull, the mares of Diomedes, the belt of Hippolyta, the cattle of Geryon, the golden apples of Hesperide, and stealing Cerberus. I did it! I got all 12. I'm so proud of myself. I'm smart. Okay. Anyway, these stories were passed through oral tradition, and we read and we analyze this today. We reread these stories, and we love reading these stories, and we can't get enough of these stories. Or if you're like me, we obsess about them 24/7. And another famous group of books is called the Iliad and the Odyssey. The Iliad and the Odyssey. The Iliad is about the Trojan War, and the Trojan War is basically a battle between the Greeks and the Turks, modern day Turkey, and it just gets really bad. It gets really gory and a lot of heroism, but a lot of heroes with a lot of faults. Like this one guy. Okay, the very first words of the Iliad are "Sing to me, O Muse," about Achilles and his wrath, sort of like that. So Achilles obviously is like he has anger issues, and the Odyssey, the first few words are "Sing to me, O Muse, of the man of twists and turns." So basically, Odysseus, his fault is because he doesn't know directions. Basically. He doesn't. It takes him 10 years to get back home. And the lyrics are still. The lyrics are still. We still analyze the poems. These are called epic poems, which basically means think of a poem, multiply that by 150. Like it's a very, 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 very long poem. And actually, the word lyric, by the way, lyric is a Greek word. Now I'm gonna, for the very last part, I'm gonna talk about sort of poetry and philosophy. So poetry, we have Sappho, and she's a very famous Greek poet who wrote about, she had very emotional poems, poems about relationships and love, basically. You have Aesop. Now, you guys have to know Aesop. Aesop's fables. He talks about the ants and the grasshopper. He talks about the boy who cried wolf, which I like wolves personally. Like wolf is like my sacred animal right there. You know, I love him. So that's a story that that really touches me. So basically, people started writing things down. People started People started writing down their feelings and writing down sort of fables or writing down stories about awesome heroes who can do 12 amazing things. For example, Hercules. And finally, philosophy. Now, I could get all nerdy on you and talk about everything, but I'm just gonna go through these a little bit. So we have Plato. Plato is a very famous philosopher. So imagine the perfect Mac, where it's so silver. It's made of real silver, and its screen can never crack, and the letters are so perfect that you can't see the little ink marks or whatever. That's a perfect MacBook. And Plato basically says that doesn't exist. It exists in an ideal world, but it doesn't exist here in our present world. And our attempt to create the best MacBook, but failing every single time, is why we are human. We are human because we are faulty. We suck at producing perfect things. And that's what makes us human. We suck at making perfect things. Aristotle was Plato's student. Aristotle basically wrote about everything from theater to government to a lot of random stuff. So Aristotle wrote a lot, and he's also the tutor of Alexander the Great. My boy. Anyway, Thales. I'm not sure if you guys talked about him, but Thales was the kind of first guy to start this whole thinking abroad thing. He basically started, he was the guy who was like, hey guys, we should start thinking about philosophy and government. We should start thinking. and guys are like, oh yeah, we should start thinking. Like it's kind of like that. He was a very important guy. Next we have Sophocles. Sophocles was a playwright. He wrote Oedipus Rex, that very bloody and very weird play. But he was a very famous playwright. And you'll get to learn more about him in 9th grade. Just know that he wrote plays. Then we have Socrates. Don't get confused with Sophocles. Socrates was a famous philosopher. He actually taught Plato. And he famously said, I'm the smartest one here because I know what I don't know. Basically means I know what I don't know, and I'm willing to accept that, and thus I'm the smartest one here. Which that was very controversial, and he got arrested for corrupting a minor, which basically means he was teaching stuff that everyone thought he shouldn't be teaching. And not in that way. Don't take it that far. And he got put on death row and he got executed for that. But still, Socrates, you good. And finally, Archimedes. If you ever run into Mr. Quitsaw at the school, he could talk about this guy forever. First thing you should know, Archimedes isn't Greek. He's actually from Sicily, which is basically, you know, like if you see Europe, you see the Italian boot kicking the soccer ball into the goal. Sicily's the soccer ball. So he's from there. And he's a very famous mathematician. He was very cool. First of all, he identified the idea of density, which basically means if you sit in the bathtub, the water level will rise, and when you get out of the bathtub, the water level will go back to normal. He discovered that. He also made this spinning sort of screw that made water travel upstream. It's called the Archimedes screw. He also invented the Archimedes claw, which is very cool because if an enemy ship came, it would literally go down, grab the ship, crush it, and just like drop it and get ready for the next one. That was very cool. And I'm running out of time, but yeah, that's the last of it and making sure I got everything. Okay, I hope that was helpful. So all in all, the Greeks did a lot for us. Greece was great. We got democracy. We got all these great philosophers. Actually, they say that Plato, for example, is every other philosopher has to reference Plato. Plato started basically. Plato's kind of considered the father of philosophy, and we got Sparta. Sparta, where actually. Today, our military is kind of based on the idea of devotion to one's country, a devotion to one's military. And actually, unfortunately, the Spartans kind of influenced Adolf Hitler to have that sort of mindset for the Nazis, but whatever. Not whatever, but I mean, you know, still love the Spartans. Spartans are still good. The idea of slavery, even though it wasn't invented by the Greeks actually brought this into the rest of the world. So slavery, unfortunately, was still a major part. What else we got? All these heroes. These heroes not heroes. All these gods, first of all, influenced the Romans, who basically influenced everyone else. Even the names of our planets come from the Romans, which end up coming from the Greeks. What else do we? So basically, and just to answer the question, Athenians versus Spartans. The Athenians believed in exercising of the mind and strength. The Spartans only believed in strength. Women in Sparta did not have that many rights. Women in Sparta did not had a lot of rights. They learned how to. They were allowed to exercise, and they had political. They had some political power. Athenian women had no power, so basically Spartan women had something and Athenians had nothing. What else is there? Spartan boys were whipped. That was their form of education, and the Athenians' form of education was basically being educated about geometry, government, astronomy. So basically those are the three main differences, and I mean, when you think about it, Greece has come a long way. I mean, from a place where it's almost all mountain, we got all these amazing figures and all these amazing ideas that influence our world, and we are so thankful for the Greeks. The Greeks did influence the Western world. They did. They are great. And that's all I have to say. That's I'm just gonna spend this last minute just talking about me. So if you haven't gotten already, my name is Jeremy. I'm an 11th grader. This is my YouTube channel where I teach history, and I started learning about Greek mythology when I was in 7th grade. Actually, here in Audi, because next year you get to read the Odyssey, and I just couldn't put it down. I was so enthralled about this world of mythology. So I wanted to learn more. I studied. I actually got into a few competitions. I did very well. I got first place in a lot of things. And I also began to develop a love for history, where I became good at memorizing facts, and I just love studying. So basically, this is my world right here. This is something that I like to do. I'm a classicist. A classicist means someone who studies Greek and Roman culture. And I love all these people here, and I wouldn't be who I am today if it wasn't for these guys. And if you ever have any questions, one, you can look at my other YouTube videos. My very first YouTube video, by the way, was 2 hours long, without any cuts. Or you can just contact me. You can ask me questions at jjason@i.org. JASON@ati.org, and I'll be more than happy to answer questions. Actually, for a little bit of time, I started reading essays, 10th grade essays, and correcting them, and that helped a lot. That helped a lot of them, and if you have any questions, and or if you just want to say hi and you see me on the hallway, please just say hi, because there's nothing more heartwarming than people who reach out to me and say, "Hey Jeremy, I really liked your video," or "Hey Jeremy, your video really sucked, but I like your passion." Like, as long as you have something to say to me, I'll be willing to take it, because I love this stuff. If you ever want to be a historian, or if you ever need me, just ask, because this is really my life. I've dedicated a lot of time into just being who I am, and and during this time, back when I was in 6th grade, I didn't know what I was gonna do, but now I kind of know where I want to go, and I know what I want to be, and you will probably find that out, whether it be science or astronomy, or philosophy, or history. You'll find yourself. Don't worry. And that's where I'm gonna leave you guys. Mr. Chesterton, I hope that was helpful for you. Relieve some of the stress off of you. And there are gonna be more videos to come on my YouTube channel. So please feel free to subscribe to this channel, or at least give it a like, or leave a comment. I don't really have a preference, as long as you just show your appreciation. So with that, I really don't have much to say. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope it was helpful. Thank you so much.